The first time Alara saw the human child, he was dying. His small body floated in the emergency medical bay of the Starlight Covenant vessel, suspended in a containment field that sparkled with diagnostic data. Crimson warnings flashed across her neural interface. Critical organ failure, severe radiation poisoning, cellular degradation accelerating. The boy couldn't have been more than 6 Earth years old. "Terminate the specimen," ordered Commander Marvos from the doorway, his voice as cold as the void between stars. "It presents an unacceptable biohazard risk to this vessel." Alara's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of distress among her kind. "Commander, this is a child. The Kaizen's collision with our medical frigate was an accident. We cannot simply—" "The human vessel violated Covenant territory," Marvos interrupted. His tall frame seemed to fill the medical bay, his ceremonial armor gleaming with embedded stellar fragments, marks of his high rank within the Covenant hierarchy. "Their biological containment procedures are primitive at best. This creature could be carrying any number of pathogens harmful to our crew." Alara studied the child's face. Despite the trauma, she could see peace there, as though he were merely sleeping. A data stream from the scanning field indicated he had likely been in cryostasis when the collision occurred. His parents hadn't survived the impact. "The Covenant's first tenet is preservation of all sentient life," Alara said quietly, her 6-fingered hand hovering over the containment field. "I have taken an oath as a stellar nurse." Marvos's secondary pupils constricted, a sign of mounting anger. "Your oath is to the Covenant first. Nurse Alara, these humans are expanding recklessly into our territories. They are a biological and cultural contaminant. The High Council has not yet determined if they qualify as truly sentient by our standards." Alara felt her heart chambers constrict. In the 3 solar cycles, since humanity had first encountered the Starlight Covenant, tensions had grown steadily. The humans' rapid expansion and their biological differences made many in the Covenant uneasy. As an interstellar theocracy spanning hundreds of worlds, the Covenant had encountered many species, but few as adaptable and unpredictable as humans. "I request permission to treat this child," Alara said, straightening to her full height, still a head shorter than Marvos. "Under quarantine protocols, of course." "Request denied." Marvos gestured to 2 security officers waiting in the corridor. "Prepare the specimen for disposal." The officers approached, their faces impassive beneath their ceremonial helmets. Alara felt something stir within her, a feeling forbidden by Covenant doctrine, defiance. "Then I respectfully invoke the right of compassionate intervention," Alara said, her voice ringing with sudden authority. The security officers froze. Even Marvos seemed taken aback. The right of compassionate intervention was an ancient Covenant law, rarely invoked. It allowed medical personnel to temporarily override command decisions if they believed a sentient life could be saved through immediate action. "You go too far, nurse," Marvos hissed, his ceremonial armor emitting a faint hum as his agitation activated its defensive systems. "This human is not worth your career, or worse." Alara stood her ground. "The law is clear, Commander. I have 48 hours to stabilize the patient. If I fail, or if any contamination occurs, I alone will bear responsibility." Marvos's face darkened. "Very well, but you will be sealed in this medical bay with the specimen. No assistance, minimal resources. When the human dies, and it will die, Alara, perhaps you will remember where your true loyalties should lie." He turned sharply and left, the security officers following like shadows. As the hermetic seals engaged around the medical bay, with a soft hiss, Alara turned back to the child. His vital signs were deteriorating rapidly. She had little time. "I don't even know your name, little one," she whispered, her inner eyelids flickering again. "But I will not let you die alone among strangers." Alara worked through the night cycle, using every skill she had acquired in her 60 years as a stellar nurse. The human physiology was different from any she had treated before, but the Covenant's vast medical databases contained enough information for her to make educated interventions. The boy's cells were breaking down from radiation exposure. The collision had ruptured the Kaizen's engine containment, flooding several compartments with deadly radiation. His cryopod had provided some protection, but not enough. Alara administered cellular regenerators, calibrated for human biology, but they barely slowed the degradation. By the second night cycle, the boy's organs were beginning to fail one by one. "Fight, little one," she murmured, adjusting the biofield surrounding him. "Your journey cannot end here." As if in response to her voice, the child's eyes fluttered open. They were a startling blue, like the rare stellar phenomena that occurred when certain dwarf stars reach the end of their life cycle. "Mom?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Alara felt a pang in her heart chambers. "No, child. My name is Alara. I'm a nurse. You're safe." His eyes struggled to focus on her alien features, the pale silver-blue skin, the large primary eyes, and smaller secondary ones, the faintly luminescent markings that spiraled across her forehead. Instead of showing fear, the boy simply asked, "Are you an angel?" Alara had encountered this human concept in her cultural studies. "No, I am a member of the Starlight Covenant. Our vessels encountered your ship. There was an accident." The boy seemed to process this information slowly. "Where's my mom and dad?" Alara hesitated. "They are beyond where I can help them. I'm sorry." Tears welled in the child's eyes, but he seemed too weak to cry. "It hurts," he whispered. "I know," Alara said gently. "I'm trying to help you. Can you tell me your name?" "Kai," the boy whispered, before slipping back into unconsciousness. Alara checked his vital signs with growing alarm. His neural activity was becoming erratic, and his heart was struggling to maintain even a basic rhythm. Despite her best efforts, Kai was dying. A soft chime at the medical bay's communication panel drew her attention. She found Toran, the ship's engineer, on the other end of the secure channel. "Nurse Alara," he said quietly, his eyes darting nervously. "I've been monitoring your situation. The commander has ordered all resources to your medical bay cut after the 48-hour period." Alara felt a cold dread settle over her. "The human child, Kai, won't survive without support. His cellular structure is too damaged." Toran leaned closer to the communication panel. "There might be another way. The experimental regeneration technology we've been developing for deep space injuries. It could work." "That technology is still untested," Alara said. "And it's calibrated for our biology, not human physiology." "I can modify it," Toran insisted. "But we'd have to move quickly. And secretly. What you're suggesting is against direct orders." Alara looked back at Kai's small form in the containment field. "I've already defied orders by invoking the right. I cannot stop now." Toran nodded. "There's an abandoned research station in Section 12. Sublevel 3. It was sealed off after the laboratory expansion last cycle. I can get you and the human there through the maintenance tunnels." "Why would you risk this, Toran?" Alara asked, studying the engineer's features. He had always seemed so rule-abiding, so dedicated to Covenant hierarchy. "Because," he said after a moment's hesitation, "I have studied the humans since first contact. They are different, yes, but there is something remarkable about them. And because what Commander Marvos ordered was wrong." For the first time since the crisis began, Alara felt a flicker of hope. "How soon can you get us there?" "Wait until the third shift change. I'll override the medical bay seals momentarily. Be ready." The screen went dark, and Alara turned back to Kai. His breathing had grown more labored, his skin taking on a grayish hue. "Hold on, Kai," she whispered. "Help is coming." True to his word, Toran created a brief security override during the third shift change. Alara moved quickly, transferring Kai to a portable stasis pod and gathering essential medical supplies. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, designed for repair drones rather than personnel. "This way," Toran whispered, leading them through a maze of service corridors. The Covenant believes these sections are sealed due to radiation leakage from the last stellar storm. Kai's stasis pod hummed softly as they moved, its power cells maintaining his fragile life force. Alara kept one hand on it at all times, monitoring his condition through her neural interface. The abandoned research station was cold and dark when they arrived, emergency power providing only minimal illumination. Dust particles danced in the air, undisturbed for cycles. "The regeneration equipment is already here," Toran explained, activating the station's systems. "I've been experimenting with improvements to the technology. Unofficially." Alara raised an eyebrow. "You've been conducting unsanctioned research." Toran's secondary pupils contracted slightly. Embarrassment. The Covenant's technological development has stagnated under the current High Council. They fear change, innovation. But I believe our founders intended us to keep exploring, keep advancing. He gestured to a cylindrical chamber at the center of the laboratory. "This is a prototype quantum cellular regenerator. It works at a fundamental level, rebuilding damaged tissues using quantum entanglement principles rather than conventional medical approaches." Alara studied the device with professional interest. "And you believe it can be adapted for human physiology?" "In theory. Their DNA structure is different, but the quantum principles should still apply." Toran moved to a control console, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "But there is a significant power requirement, and we cannot tap into the ship's main systems without alerting security." Alara transferred Kai from the stasis pod to the regeneration chamber, watching his vital signs fluctuate dangerously. "How will we power it then?" Toran hesitated. "There is one source, the bioluminescent energy that our bodies naturally produce. It can be channeled, harvested." Alara understood immediately. The luminescent markings that adorned their kind were more than decorative. They were living energy, a connection to the stars themselves, according to Covenant theology. "You mean to use our own life force?" she said quietly. "A portion only," Toran assured her. "Not enough to cause permanent damage. Between the two of us, we should be able to provide enough initial energy to stabilize his condition." Alara looked down at Kai. In the soft glow of the laboratory, he looked impossibly fragile. "Let's begin." The process was painful. Toran attached neural interfaces to their luminescent markings, creating a direct channel for their bioenergy into the regeneration chamber. Alara felt the drain immediately, a cold emptiness spreading from her forehead throughout her body as her vital energy was siphoned away. The chamber hummed to life, surrounding Kai with a pulsing blue field. His cells began to respond, the degradation slowing, then stopping. Regeneration began at a microscopic level. "It's working," Toran said, his voice weak from the energy drain. "His cellular integrity is improving." Alara watched through increasingly blurred vision as Kai's color improved, his breathing becoming more regular. But the chamber's energy demands were relentless, and she felt herself growing weaker by the moment. "Toran," she whispered, "we need to stop. We're giving too much." The engineer nodded weakly, reaching for the control panel. As he did, an alarm suddenly blared through the laboratory. "No," Toran gasped. "They've detected the power fluctuation." The laboratory door slid open with a hiss, and Commander Marvos stepped through, flanked by security officers. His expression was thunderous. "Treason," he said simply, taking in the scene before him. "You have violated direct orders, endangered this vessel, and desecrated your own sacred energy for an alien creature." Alara tried to stand but found her legs too weak. "The child is healing, Commander. The technology works." This could revolutionize our medical capabilities. This abomination will be terminated, Marvos said coldly. And you will both face the High Council for judgment. As the security officers moved forward, something unexpected happened. The regeneration chamber suddenly pulsed with intense light, and alarms blared from Toran's control panel. "Something's wrong," the engineer cried. "The chamber is drawing too much power." Alara felt a sudden chill as she realized what was happening. "It's Kai. His cells are absorbing our energy too efficiently. The system can't regulate the flow." The chamber's glow intensified, becoming almost blinding. Through the radiance, Alara could see Kai's body beginning to change, his cells not only healing, but transforming in some fundamental way. "Shut it down," Marvos commanded, shielding his eyes from the light. "I can't," Toran struggled with the controls. "The process has become self-sustaining." Alara pushed herself to her feet, stumbling toward the chamber. Through her medical interface, she could see what was happening at a cellular level. Kai's human DNA was somehow integrating with the quantum energy pattern of Covenant bioenergy, creating something entirely new. "Commander," she said urgently, "we need to evacuate this section. The energy reaction is becoming unstable." But Marvos wasn't listening. He was staring at Kai, a strange expression crossing his features. Not anger, but something like covetousness. "So it's true," he whispered. "The rumors about human genetic adaptability. Their DNA can integrate with our sacred energy." Understanding dawned on Alara. "You knew this was possible. That's why you wanted him destroyed so quickly." Marvos's gaze snapped to her. "The High Council has suspected for some time that humans might be compatible with our quantum technologies in ways no other species has been. If they gained this knowledge, they could eventually match or exceed our capabilities. The destruction of the Kaizen was no accident. Nurse Alara." Alara felt horror wash over her. "You deliberately caused the collision." "A regrettable necessity," Marvos said without remorse. "We detected unusual genetic markers in one of the passengers. This boy, as it happens. He carries a rare DNA sequence that acts as a key to our most advanced technologies. He was never supposed to survive." The chamber's glow pulsed again, and warning signals blared more insistently. Toran looked up from the controls, his face pale. "It's going critical. The energy pattern is destabilizing." Marvos turned to his security officers. "Secure the child. Kill the others." As the officers moved forward, Alara made a desperate decision. She lunged for the chamber controls, overriding the safety protocols. If she could channel the excess energy through her own body, she might be able to stabilize the reaction. "Alara, no!" Toran cried, realizing her intent. But it was too late. Alara connected herself directly to the chamber's energy flow. Immediately, she felt a surge of power, unlike anything she had ever experienced. Burning, transforming, overwhelming. Her luminescent markings blazed with light, and she heard herself cry out in pain. Through the agony, she saw Kai's eyes open, glowing with the same ethereal light that now consumed her. Their gazes locked, and in that moment, Alara felt a profound connection, as though their consciousness briefly touched across the gulf of species and experience. "Live," she whispered to him, pouring not just her energy, but her very essence into the connection. "Live and remember." The last thing Alara saw was Marvos's face, twisted in rage and fear as a wave of pure energy erupted from her body, engulfing the laboratory in starlight. Kai awoke to the sound of soft humming. For a moment, he thought he was back on Earth, in his bedroom, with his mother singing him to sleep as she often did. But the surface beneath him was not his bed, and the ceiling above was not adorned with the glow-in-the-dark stars his father had carefully arranged in accurate constellations. Memory returned in fragments: the colony ship Kaizen, the cryosleep chamber, his parents' excited faces as they prepared for their new life on Proxima Centauri B. Then chaos, alarms, the sensation of falling. And after that, a face. Not human, but kind. Silver blue skin and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. "Alara," he whispered, the name coming to him from somewhere deep in his fractured memories. "The child is awake," a voice said nearby. Kai turned his head to see a figure similar to Alara, but male, with angular features and luminescent markings that formed different patterns. Toran. His mind supplied, though he wasn't sure how he knew the name. "How do you feel, Kai?" Toran asked, approaching cautiously. Kai considered the question. He felt different, as though his body was both lighter and heavier than before. And there was a strange humming sensation just beneath his skin. "Where's Alara?" he asked instead of answering. Toran's expression shifted, his secondary eyelids flickering rapidly. Sadness. Kai somehow knew. "Alara gave her life to save yours," Toran said gently. There was an energy surge in the regeneration chamber. She contained it, channeled it through herself to protect you. Kai felt tears well in his eyes, though he barely knew Alara. Yet somehow, he felt as though he had lost someone precious, someone who had become part of him in some fundamental way. "What happened to the angry one, the commander?" Kai asked, wiping at his eyes. "Marvos survived. Unfortunately," Toran said, his tone hardening. "But he was injured in the energy discharge, and the incident has raised questions among the Covenant leadership. We are currently in hiding." For the first time, Kai took in his surroundings properly. They were in a small chamber that hummed with machinery. The walls were curved and iridescent, unlike the stark utilitarian design of the medical bay he vaguely remembered. "Where are we?" he asked. "On a shuttle, heading for the outer forests of Viridia," Toran explained. "It's a border world, where the Covenant's influence is weaker. We have sympathizers there, those who believe, as Alara did, that all sentient life deserves protection." Kai sat up slowly, noticing how his movements felt oddly fluid, as though his body was responding in new ways. "Why did she do it? Why did Alara save me?" Toran was quiet for a long moment. "Because it was who she was. Alara believed in the original teachings of the Covenant, that compassion transcends differences, that life is sacred regardless of its origin." He hesitated, then added, "And because she saw something special in you, Kai, something worth protecting at any cost." The shuttle shuddered slightly as it entered Viridia's atmosphere. Through a small viewport, Kai could see the planet's surface coming into view, vast forests of crystalline trees that seemed to shimmer with internal light, stretching to the horizon under twin moons. "I don't feel like I deserve it," Kai said quietly. "I'm just a kid." "Perhaps that is precisely why you deserved it," Toran replied. "Innocence is rare in this universe. Kai, those who still possess it should be treasured." The shuttle landed in a clearing among the crystal trees. As the hatch opened, Kai was struck by the planet's alien beauty. The trees weren't actually crystal, he realized, but some form of semi-transparent vegetation that captured and refracted light. The ground was carpeted with small, star-shaped flowers that glowed faintly in the dusk. "Starfalls," Toran said, noticing Kai's fascination with the flowers. "They bloom only at twilight and dawn. Alara always loved them." A group of Covenant members waited for them at the edge of the clearing, all bearing the distinctive luminescent markings, though theirs seemed dimmer than Toran's, or the ones Kai remembered on Alara. "Welcome to the sanctuary," one of them said, stepping forward. "I am Lyra, keeper of this refuge. Toran has told us of your journey." Kai stood uncertainly, suddenly aware of how alien he must appear to them, the only human on a world of Covenant beings. Lyra seemed to sense his discomfort. She knelt down to his level, her primary eyes meeting his directly, a sign of respect in Covenant culture, though Kai didn't know how he knew this. "Child of Earth, You are welcome here. Any life Alara deemed worthy of her sacrifice is worthy of our protection. Thank you, Kai said quietly. Come, Lyra said, rising. Night approaches, and the forest is not always kind to visitors after dark. As they walked through the forest toward what appeared to be a settlement, built within and around the living trees, Kai noticed something odd. The starfall flowers seemed to turn toward him as he passed, their glow intensifying slightly, as though responding to his presence. Toran, he whispered, the flowers. The engineer glanced down, his expression unreadable. Yes, I've noticed. It seems Alara's gift continues to manifest in unexpected ways. What gift? What's happening to me? Before Toran could answer, a distant sound echoed through the forest, the distinctive hum of Covenant shuttles. Lyra froze, listening. Covenant military vessels, she said grimly. They've found us sooner than expected. Toran's face hardened. Marvos. He must have tracked the shuttle's ion trail. We must move quickly, Lyra decided. The underground chambers will shield us from their scanners. The group hastened toward the settlement. But Kai found it increasingly difficult to keep up. His body, still recovering from the trauma and transformation, betrayed him. He stumbled, nearly falling. I'll carry him, Toran said, lifting Kai easily. As the engineer's hands touched his skin, Kai felt a strange resonance, as though something within him recognized something within Toran. The settlement was larger than it had appeared from a distance, extending into and beneath the massive crystal trees. Hidden entrances led to subterranean chambers connected by winding tunnels. These caverns were formed naturally by the root systems of the trees, Lyra explained as they descended. Over generations, we have expanded them, creating a sanctuary for those who follow the original teachings of the Covenant. Dissidents, Toran clarified for Kai's benefit. Those who question the increasingly militaristic and isolationist policies of the High Council. They reached a large chamber deep beneath the forest floor. The walls were lined with the same iridescent material as the shuttle, and soft bioluminescent light emanated from fixtures that seemed to be alive rather than manufactured. You'll be safe here for now, Lyra said. Our shields will mask your presence from standard scanners. But not for long, another Covenant member added. The military vessels carry advanced detection equipment. It's only a matter of time before they locate us. Kai felt a weight of guilt settle over him. This is because of me, isn't it? They want me because of what Alara did. Toran knelt beside him. Partly, yes. But this conflict has been brewing for generations. The current leadership fears change, fears difference. What happened with you and Alara has simply brought it to a head. What did happen? Kai asked, the question that had been burning inside him since he awoke. What am I now? Toran exchanged glances with Lyra, who nodded slightly. When Alara channeled the energy of the regeneration chamber through herself, something unprecedented occurred, Toran explained. Her quantum essence, what you might call her soul, became intertwined with your human DNA. You carry a part of her now, Kai, and that makes you unique in all the universe. Kai looked down at his hands, noticing for the first time the faint luminescence beneath his skin, not the distinct markings of the Covenant, but a subtle glow that seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. Is that why the flowers responded to me? Yes, Lyra said. Starfalls are sensitive to Covenant bioenergy. They recognize Alara's essence within you. But there's more, Toran continued. Marvos wasn't lying about one thing. You do carry a rare genetic sequence. Your DNA contains what we call the stellar key, a pattern that can interface with our most sacred technologies. It's incredibly rare, even among humans, combined with the essence Alara gave you. I'm valuable, Kai finished. That's why they're hunting me. You're more than valuable, child, Lyra said softly. You're dangerous to them. You represent the possibility of cooperation, of integration between our species. The current leadership would rather see humanity contained or eliminated than risk such change. A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling of the chamber. The Covenant vessels were getting closer. "We need to move deeper into the cave system," one of the other dissidents urged. "The star chamber will provide better protection." They continued through the winding tunnels, descending further beneath Viridia's surface. Kai noticed that the tunnels were becoming more elaborate, with intricate carvings covering the walls, ancient symbols, and star maps etched into the living stone. "These tunnels are older than our settlement," Lyra explained, seeing his interest. "They were created by Viridia's original inhabitants, long extinct now. They too were stargazers, though their understanding was different from ours." The tunnel eventually opened into a vast underground cavern that took Kai's breath away. The ceiling was studded with thousands of tiny crystals that reflected light in patterns mimicking the night sky. At the center stood a raised dais of polished stone, encircled by star-shaped flowers, similar to the ones outside, but larger and more brilliantly luminescent. "The Star Chamber," Toran said with reverence. "The heart of the ancient temple complex." Kai stepped forward, drawn by the beauty of the place. As he approached the central dais, the star flowers began to pulse with light, responding to his presence just as the ones in the forest had. "They know you," Lyra whispered, watching with wide eyes. Before Kai could respond, another tremor shook the chamber, stronger than before. Dust and small stone fragments rained down from the ceiling. "They're using ground-penetrating charges," Toran said grimly. "They found us." The dissidents moved quickly, establishing defensive positions at the chamber's entrance. Lyra guided Kai toward a small alcove behind the central dais. "Stay hidden," she instructed. "If they break through, there's a passage behind this wall that leads deeper into the cave system. Follow it until you reach water. Then go left." Kai grabbed her hand. "Don't fight because of me, please. I don't want anyone else to get hurt." Lyra's expression softened. "Child, we fight for what Alara believed in, what we all believe in, the right of all sentient beings to live in peace, to determine their own path. You are important. Yes, but you are also a symbol of the change we seek." Another blast rocked the chamber, closer this time. The sound of weapons fire echoed down the tunnel. "Go!" Lyra urged, pushing Kai toward the alcove. From his hiding place, Kai could see the chamber entrance. The dissidents had taken cover behind stone formations, their own weapons, seemingly grown rather than manufactured, at the ready. The first Covenant soldiers appeared at the entrance, their armor more elaborate and aggressive than what Kai had seen on the medical ship. They moved with military precision, firing suppression blasts that sent the dissidents scrambling for better cover. And then, Marvos himself entered. His armor now augmented with what appeared to be medical technology. Part of his face was covered with a metallic implant, evidence of the injury he had sustained in the laboratory explosion. "Surrender the human child," he commanded, his voice amplified and distorted. "By order of the High Council, all who harbor this abomination are guilty of treason against the Covenant. The only treason here is against our founding principles," Toran called back. "You have corrupted the Covenant's purpose. Marvos, twisted our sacred teachings to justify fear and isolation." Marvos laughed, a harsh sound through his implant. "Always the idealist, engineer. But the universe is not kind to idealists. The human species is a threat, aggressive, unpredictable, genetically volatile. We have seen such species before, and we have survived by containing them before they could spread." "Humanity is already among the stars," Lyra responded. "They cannot be contained any longer." "Then they will be eliminated," Marvos said simply, "beginning with the abomination you hide." He raised his hand, and the soldiers advanced into the chamber, firing with greater intensity. Several dissidents fell, their bodies glowing briefly before going dark. Kai felt a surge of panic and guilt. People were dying because of him. Alara had already sacrificed herself. He couldn't let it happen again. Before he could think better of it, he stepped out from his hiding place. "Stop! I'm here!" "Kai, no!" Toran shouted, but it was too late. Marvos turned toward him, his organic eye widening slightly. "So, this is what Alara's sacrifice created. Come here, boy." Kai stood his ground, though fear made his legs tremble. "Leave them alone. It's me you want." "Indeed it is," Marvos gestured, and 2 soldiers moved to flank Kai. "The High Council will be most interested in studying you. The first human covenant hybrid, a living blasphemy." As the soldiers approached, something strange happened. The starflowers surrounding the dais began to pulse more rapidly, their light intensifying until it was almost blinding. Kai felt a warmth spreading through him, centered on his heart and radiating outward. The same sensation he had experienced briefly in the regeneration chamber. "What's happening?" one of the soldiers asked, hesitating. Marvos stepped forward, his expression a mixture of scientific curiosity and religious horror. "The stellar convergence. It's not supposed to be possible outside of our sacred temples." The light from the flowers seemed to flow toward Kai, surrounding him in a cocoon of radiance. He felt no fear now, only a profound sense of connection to the flowers, to the chamber, to the dissidents, even to the hostile soldiers. And beneath it all, a presence that felt achingly familiar. "Alara," he whispered. The light intensified, and Kai felt knowledge flooding into him, understanding beyond his years, memories that weren't his own, emotions both alien and familiar. He saw the universe through Alara's eyes, felt her compassion, her dedication, her final desperate act of love. When he spoke again, his voice seemed to carry echoes of hers. The Starlight Covenant was founded on the belief that all life is connected through the cosmic web, that the same stellar energy that births stars flows through all sentient beings. Marvos took an involuntary step back. "Silence. These are sacred teachings, not for human lips." But Kai continued, the words flowing through him as though Alara herself spoke. "Your fear has twisted these teachings, Commander. You see difference as threat, change as danger. But the stars themselves change, evolve, transform. Even in death, they birth new possibilities." The light surrounding Kai began to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat, expanding outward in concentric waves. Where it touched the Covenant soldiers, their weapons dimmed, power sources temporarily disrupted. "What is this technology?" Marvos demanded, his own implants flickering as the energy wave passed through him. "Not technology," Toran said, understanding dawning on his face. "Life, pure quantum life energy, the essence of what we call the soul, Alara's final gift." Kai felt the energy building within him, seeking release, acting on instinct, or perhaps guided by Alara's lingering presence. He directed it toward Marvos, not as a weapon, but as a bridge. The commander staggered as the wave hit him, his implants sparking. But it was his mind that suffered the greater shock. For a brief moment, he experienced what Kai had, the flood of Alara's memories, her perspective, her unwavering belief in compassion across boundaries. "No," Marvos gasped, falling to his knees. "These are lies, manipulations." "They are truth," Kai said simply. "Alara's truth. Feel it." The energy continued to build, becoming almost too much for Kai's small body to contain. He felt himself beginning to lose consciousness, overwhelmed by the power flowing through him. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Marvos's face, not angry now, but shocked, confused, as though the foundations of his world were crumbling beneath him. Kai dreamed of stars, not the distant points of light visible from Earth, but stars as Alara had known them, living entities of immense power and subtle consciousness, each with its own song in the cosmic symphony. In his dream, he floated among them, cradled in their radiance, listening to their ancient music. And through it all, a voice, Alara's voice, teaching him, guiding him, sharing the wisdom of her people and the compassion that had defined her life. When he awoke, he was in a different place, a small dwelling built within one of the crystal trees. Sunlight filtering through the translucent walls and creating rainbow patterns on the floor. Toran sat nearby, working on what appeared to be a small mechanical device. "Welcome back," the engineer said, setting aside his work. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." Kai sat up slowly, feeling oddly refreshed despite the length of his sleep. "What happened in the star chamber?" Toran's expression was difficult to read. "Something unprecedented. The energy Alara transferred to you interacted with the ancient power of the chamber itself, creating a phenomenon, a momentary bridge between minds." "I felt her," Kai said quietly. "Alara. It was like she was inside me, speaking through me." "In a sense, she is," Toran confirmed. "The quantum essence she sacrificed to save you has become integrated with your own, not possessing you, but enhancing you, changing you." "And Marvos, the soldiers?" "Retreated, for now. What you did, what Alara did through you, affected them profoundly. Marvos, most of all. To experience another's consciousness so directly, it is not something our kind is prepared for. Our telepathic abilities are limited, controlled. What happened in the chamber was raw, unfiltered connection." Kai looked down at his hands. The faint luminescence remained, pulsing gently beneath his skin. "Will it happen again?" "I don't know," Toran admitted. "You are the first of your kind, Kai. A bridge between human and covenant. The rules that govern our separate biologies may not apply to you in the same way." A soft chime interrupted them, some kind of communication device. Toran checked it, his expression growing serious. "What is it?" Kai asked. "News from the Covenant capital. The High Council is in turmoil. Word of what happened in the Star Chamber has spread, despite Marvos's efforts to suppress it. Many are questioning the policies toward humanity, calling for renewed dialogue instead of isolation or conflict." "That's good, right?" Toran's expression remained grave. "Change never comes easily, especially to a society as ancient as ours. There are factions forming, those who see you as a symbol of hope, and those who view you as a threat to our very identity." "I never asked to be a symbol," Kai said, a hint of childish frustration breaking through. "I just want—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish. What did he want? His parents were gone. His future on Proxima Centauri B erased. He was a human child alone among aliens, carrying the essence of a woman who had died to save him. "You want to belong," Toran said gently. "To find your place. It is the most natural desire in the universe, Kai." Before Kai could respond, Lyra entered the dwelling, carrying a small container of what appeared to be food, nutrient spheres formulated for human consumption. "Our young guest is awake," she said with evident relief. "How do you feel, Kai?" "Different," he answered honestly. "But okay, I think—" Lyra set down the container and sat beside him. "The changes within you are still stabilizing. It will take time for your human physiology to fully integrate with the covenant essence you carry." Kai picked up one of the nutrient spheres, examining its translucent surface. "Will I become more like you, less human?" "No," Toran said firmly. "What makes you human is not merely your biology, but your experiences, your memories, your perspective. Alara's gift adds to you. It does not replace—" Lyra touched Kai's hand gently. "You are something new, child, neither fully human nor covenant, but a bridge between worlds. In time, you may come to see this as a blessing rather than a burden." Kai wasn't sure he believed that yet, but he nodded anyway. "What happens now?" Toran and Lyra exchanged glances. We've received word from sympathizers within the Covenant fleet, Torrin said. Marvos has been temporarily relieved of command pending an investigation into his actions. But he still has supporters, and they will not give up easily. We believe the safest course is to move you to another sanctuary, Lyra added. One even more remote than Viridia, where you can continue to heal and learn to control your new abilities. More running, Kai said quietly. More hiding. For now, Torrin acknowledged. But not forever. What happened in the Star Chamber has already begun to change minds throughout the Covenant. Some are calling it a miracle, evidence that our founding principles of universal connection were correct all along. And others? Others call it an abomination, Lyra said honestly. A contamination of Covenant purity. The debate rages in every temple and vessel of the Covenant. Kai set down the nutrient sphere, his appetite gone. I don't want to be the cause of a religious war. The conflict was inevitable, Torrin said. Humanity's expansion into the stars forced the Covenant to confront its isolationist tendencies. Your unique situation has simply accelerated the process, brought the underlying tensions to the surface. A sudden commotion outside drew their attention. Voices raised in alarm, the sound of running feet. Torrin moved to the dwelling's entrance, peering out cautiously. His posture stiffened. We have to move, now. What is it? Lyra asked, already gathering emergency supplies. Covenant military vessels, a full squadron. They've breached our outer defenses. Kai felt a surge of panic. Marvos! I don't know, Torrin admitted. But we can't take chances. The evacuation tunnel. Quickly. They hurried from the dwelling, joining a stream of dissidents, fleeing toward the forest's edge. The sky above was filled with Covenant vessels, sleek, predatory shapes descending through Viridia's atmosphere. The evacuation tunnel was concealed beneath the roots of an enormous crystal tree, its entrance disguised as a natural formation. Inside, the tunnel sloped sharply downward, leading deep beneath the forest floor. This will take us to an underground river, Lyra explained as they descended. We have submersibles hidden there. They had almost reached the river when the first explosions rocked the tunnel behind them. Dust and fragments of root material rained down as the ceiling cracked. They're targeting the tunnel system, Torrin said grimly. They must have scanned the entire settlement. The tunnel ahead was partially blocked by fallen debris. Lyra and Torrin worked quickly to clear a path, but it was slow going, and the sounds of pursuit grew closer. You two go ahead, Torrin decided. After they had cleared enough space for a child to squeeze through, I'll hold them off. Buy you time. Torrin, no, Lyra protested. You can't face them alone. I won't be alone, he said, his gaze shifting to Kai. Alara's essence flows through the boy, and a part of it resonates with all Covenant. I will draw on that connection. Kai felt tears welling in his eyes. Please don't. Not because of me, not again. Torrin knelt to face him directly. Listen to me, Kai. What Alara began cannot end here, in this tunnel. You carry something precious, not just her essence, but the possibility of a new understanding between our peoples. That is worth any sacrifice. But? No buts, Torrin said firmly. This is my choice, just as it was Alara's. Honor it by surviving, by carrying her message forward. Before Kai could protest further, Lyra pulled him toward the narrow opening. We must go, now! The last Kai saw of Torrin was the engineer standing tall in the tunnel, his luminescent markings glowing brightly as he prepared to face the approaching soldiers. Lyra guided Kai through the cramped passage and out onto the bank of an underground river. True to her word, several small submersible craft were moored there, their sleek forms barely visible in the dim bioluminescent light that emanated from the river itself. These waters flow beneath the entire northern continent, Lyra explained, as she helped Kai into one of the vessels. The minerals in the water block Covenant scanners. We should be safe once we're underway. As she powered up the submersible, a massive tremor shook the cavern. Rocks fell from the ceiling, splashing into the river. The tunnel they had emerged from collapsed entirely. "Toran," Kai whispered, grief washing over him. Lyra's hands trembled on the controls, but her voice remained steady. "He knew the risks. We honor his sacrifice by completing our mission." The submersible slipped beneath the glowing waters, leaving the settlement and its defenders behind. Kai watched through the vessel's transparent canopy as the underground river carried them deeper into Viridia's subterranean world. Hours passed in near silence. The only sound, the soft hum of the submersible's propulsion system. Kai drifted in and out of uneasy sleep, his dreams filled with stars and voices and the memory of Alara's final moments. When he awoke fully, the submersible was surfacing in another cavern, smaller than the one they had left but illuminated by the same bioluminescent algae that seemed to thrive in Viridia's underground waterways. "Where are we?" he asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. "The far northern reaches," Lyra replied, guiding the vessel to a natural stone dock. "Beyond even the Covenant's claimed territories on this world, few have ventured this far." As they disembarked, Kai noticed the cavern walls were covered with intricate carvings, similar to those in the star chamber, but older, more primal. They depicted star patterns, planetary alignments, and beings that resembled both the Covenant and something altogether different. "The Ancient Ones," Lyra said, seeing his interest. "The original inhabitants of Viridia, long extinct. They too were star travelers, but their understanding of the cosmos was different from ours." "Different how?" "They believed the stars were not merely celestial bodies, but conscious entities, vast minds that communicated across the void through light and gravity. According to their teachings, all intelligent life carries a fragment of stellar consciousness, a spark of cosmic awareness." The carvings seemed to shift in the dim light, creating the illusion of movement. Kai felt drawn to them, particularly to one depicting a small figure surrounded by radiating light. "That's the Stellar Child," Lyra explained. "A figure from their prophecies, one who would bridge worlds and usher in a new age of understanding." Kai stared at the carving. "You think that's me? That's why you brought me here?" Lyra's expression was solemn. "I think prophecies are often misunderstood, Kai. They speak of patterns, possibilities, not certainties. But what happened to you, what Alara did, echoes the ancient stories in ways that cannot be ignored." She led him deeper into the cavern, where it opened into a larger chamber. Unlike the ornate star chamber beneath the settlement, this space was raw, primal, stalactites and stalagmites creating natural columns that supported the vast ceiling. At the center stood a single crystal formation, larger than the others, that seemed to pulse with inner light. "The heart of stars," Lyra said reverently. "The most sacred site of the Ancient Ones. It is said to be a fragment of the first star that gave birth to life in this galaxy." Kai approached the crystal cautiously. As he drew near, the luminescence beneath his skin responded, glowing more brightly. "It recognizes you," Lyra whispered. "Or rather, it recognizes what you carry within you." "Alara's essence?" "Yes, but more than that. The quantum pattern that defines all Covenant life, the stellar signature that connects us to the cosmos. It resonates with the crystal." Kai reached out hesitantly, his fingers hovering just above the crystal's surface. "What will happen if I touch it?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted. "The ancient texts speak of communion, of revelations, but they are cryptic. This place has been forgotten by most of the Covenant for generations." Before Kai could decide, a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "Step away from the crystal, boy!" They turned to see Commander Marvos standing at the entrance to the chamber, alone but heavily armed. His implants gleamed in the dim light, more extensive than before, covering nearly half his face now. How did you find us? Lyra demanded, moving protectively in front of Kai. I followed the resonance pattern, Marvos said, tapping his implants. After our encounter in the star chamber, I found I could sense the boy's unique energy signature. These enhancements merely amplified the connection. Kai noticed something different about Marvos. The cold arrogance was still there, but tempered now by something else. Uncertainty. Perhaps even fear. You felt it, didn't you? Kai asked quietly. In the chamber. You felt what Alara felt. Marvos's organic eye narrowed. I experienced a momentary neural disruption. Nothing more. Your hybrid nature creates interference patterns that can affect Covenant consciousness. It was more than that, Kai insisted. You felt her compassion, her belief in connection rather than division. Childish sentiment, Marvos snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. The universe is not kind, boy. Species compete, evolve, supplant one another. It is the natural order. Is that why you're here alone? Lyra asked shrewdly. Because the High Council shares your certainty? A muscle twitched in Marvos's jaw. The Council has been contaminated by superstition. They speak of signs and prophecies, of the return of the ancient ways. They have forgotten that the Covenant rose to greatness through discipline and purity, not mystic communion with lesser species. So you've gone rogue, Kai realized. You're disobeying orders. I am preserving the true Covenant, Marvos corrected, raising his weapon. Starting by eliminating the abomination that threatens everything we've built. As he aimed at Kai, the crystal at the center of the chamber pulsed suddenly, its light intensifying. The luminescence beneath Kai's skin responded, spreading outward in visible patterns that mimicked the Covenant markings, but with a uniquely human variation. What's happening? Marvos demanded, his weapon wavering. Kai felt a strange calm settle over him, as though he were simultaneously fully present in his body and somehow beyond it. When he spoke, his voice carried echoes of Alara's, but also something older, deeper. The Ancient Ones understood what the Covenant has forgotten. Commander, the stars are not merely celestial bodies. They are the first sentient beings, vast and patient beyond human or Covenant comprehension. All life carries their spark, their consciousness. The crystal's light continued to build, filling the chamber with radiance. Marvos shielded his organic eye, his implants sparking as they struggled to compensate for the intensity. This is trickery, he snarled. Technology disguised as mysticism. No technology, Kai said, stepping closer to the crystal. Only life, only connection. The crystal seemed to be responding to him, its light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Kai felt drawn to it, compelled to complete the connection that had begun with Alara's sacrifice. Don't touch it! Marvos shouted, his voice tinged with genuine fear now. You don't know what you're doing. But Kai did know. Somehow. The knowledge flowed through him. Ilara's understanding combined with ancient memories, stored within the crystal itself, accessible only to one who carried both human adaptability and Covenant quantum resonance. He placed his palm against the crystal's surface. Light exploded outward, engulfing the chamber. Kai felt himself drawn into the crystal, his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of his small body. He saw the universe as the Ancient Ones had, a vast web of connection, stars communicating across light years, life evolving according to patterns seeded in the earliest moments of creation. And he saw Alara, not as a memory or an echo, but as a presence, her quantum essence preserved within the cosmic web, transformed but not destroyed. You never truly died, he whispered in wonder. Her response came not in words, but in feeling, affirmation, joy, purpose. The boundary between individual consciousness and universal connection was more permeable than either humans or the Covenant had realized. Death was not an end, but a transformation, a rejoining with the stellar consciousness from which all life had emerged. The vision expanded further, showing Kai possible futures, branches of probability extending outward from this moment. In some, conflict between humanity and the Covenant escalated to devastating war. In others, isolation continued, each species missing the opportunity for growth that connection would bring. But there was another path. Difficult, uncertain, but luminous with possibility. A future where Kai served as a living bridge between worlds, carrying Alara's message of compassion and connection to both his human kin and the Covenant. When the vision finally released him, Kai found himself kneeling before the crystal, which had returned to its normal luminescence. Lyra stood nearby, her expression one of awe and marvels. The commander had fallen to his knees, his weapon forgotten on the ground beside him. His implants had gone dark, and tears streamed from his organic eye. "You saw it too," Kai said. Not a question, but a statement. Marvos nodded slowly. "I saw everything. The truth behind our teachings, the meaning of the stars." His voice broke. "I saw Alara, and what she truly gave you." "Not just me," Kai said gently. "All of us. A chance to remember what the Covenant was meant to be." Marvos looked at his hands as though seeing them for the first time. "The High Council. They were right to question me. I had forgotten our purpose, twisted our teachings to justify fear." "It's not too late to change course," Lyra said, her voice firm but compassionate. "To honor Alara's sacrifice by building bridges, rather than walls." Marvos rose unsteadily to his feet. "The path will not be easy. There are many in the Covenant who share my former views, who fear change and difference." "And many who remember the original teachings," Lyra countered, "who believe in connection rather than isolation. They need only the courage to speak." "And a symbol to rally around," Marvos added, looking at Kai with new understanding. "The living bridge between worlds." Kai felt the weight of expectation settling on his young shoulders. "I'm just a kid," he said, echoing his earlier protest to Toran. "I don't know how to change the course of entire civilizations." "Perhaps that is precisely why it must be you," Lyra said, echoing Toran's response. "Innocence sees possibilities that experience has learned to dismiss." Marvos stepped forward, removing his commander's insignia and holding it out to Kai. "I cannot undo the harm I have caused, but I can bear witness to what I have seen, to the truth revealed in this chamber." Kai accepted the insignia, feeling its weight in his palm. "What happens now?" "We return to the Covenant capital," Marvos said. "I will face judgment for my actions, and you will share your story, Alara's story, with the High Council." "And after that?" Kai asked, suddenly aware of how alone he was in this vast, alien society. "After that," Lyra said gently, "you begin the work of bridge building. Not alone, but with allies from both worlds. It is the path Alara began, and the one you are uniquely suited to continue." As they prepared to leave the chamber, Kai took one last look at the Heart of Stars. Its light seemed to pulse in farewell, acknowledging the bond they now shared. "I'll come back," he promised silently. "When I'm older, when I understand more." The crystal's light dimmed slightly, as if in acceptance of his promise. The journey to the Covenant capital took many days. First through Viridia's subterranean waterways, then aboard Marvos's personal vessel, now repurposed for peace rather than pursuit. During the journey, Kai's unique nature continued to evolve, the luminescence beneath his skin forming more distinct patterns, his awareness of the quantum connections between all living things growing stronger. Marvos, too, was changing. With his implants removed, he seemed younger somehow, the hardness in his expression softening as he reconnected with beliefs long suppressed. He spent hours in meditation, seeking to understand the vision granted by the Heart of Stars, and more hours still teaching Kai about Covenant history, culture, and science. Your human adaptability combined with Covenant quantum consciousness creates unique possibilities, he explained one day, as they sat in the vessel's observation dome, watching the stars streak by. You learn differently than a Covenant child would, integrating information in ways our rigid thinking struggles to match. Is that why Alara chose me? Kai asked. Because I'm human? Marvos considered this. I believe Alara chose you because you needed her, and she was a healer to her core. The outcome, your transformation, was not planned. But perhaps it was inevitable. The universe has patterns we are only beginning to understand. The Covenant capital was a marvel of stellar engineering, a vast space station orbiting a blue giant star, its architecture seeming to flow rather than stand, curves and spirals mimicking cosmic patterns. As Marvos's vessel approached, Kai felt a sense of both wonder and apprehension. How would the Covenant people react to him, a human child carrying the essence of one of their own? The answer came sooner than expected. As they docked, they were met not by security forces, but by a delegation of Covenant citizens, ordinary people who had gathered spontaneously upon hearing of their arrival. Word of what happened on Viridia has spread throughout the Covenant, Lyra explained, watching the growing crowd through the viewport. Many see it as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, the return of the original way. When Kai finally stepped onto the station, a hush fell over the gathered Covenant. They stared at his small human form, at the luminescent patterns visible beneath his skin, at the blend of species that he represented. Then an elderly Covenant stepped forward, her luminescent markings faded with age. She knelt before Kai, meeting his eyes directly in the Covenant gesture of deepest respect. "The bridge between worlds," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. Just as the ancient texts foretold, others followed her example, kneeling or bowing, until the entire gathering had acknowledged him. Kai felt overwhelmed, undeserving of such reverence. "Please," he said, his voice small but clear. "I'm not a god or a prophet. I'm just changed, because someone loved enough to give everything." The elderly Covenant rose, smiling gently. "That child is precisely what makes you worthy, not power or prophecy, but the love that transformed you and that you carry forward." The High Council received them in the Grand Temple, a structure that seemed to be composed of solidified starlight, its walls shifting subtly with cosmic patterns. The 9 council members sat in a semicircle, their ceremonial robes adorned with stellar fragments similar to those Marvos had once worn. Marvos prostrated himself before them, accepting full responsibility for his actions. "I betrayed the true teachings of the Covenant," he confessed. "I allowed fear to corrupt wisdom, tradition to overshadow truth." The head counselor, an ancient Covenant whose luminescent markings covered nearly her entire body, studied him thoughtfully. "And what brought about this change of heart, Commander?" "He did," Marvos said simply, indicating Kai. "Or, rather, what he carries within him, the essence of Nurse Alara, and the truth it revealed." The council turned their collective gaze to Kai, who stood small but straight-backed before them. He felt Alara's presence strongly in this sacred space, as though the temple's connection to the stars amplified the quantum bond they shared. "Tell us your story, child of Earth," the head counselor invited. And so Kai did, from the collision of the Kaizen with the Covenant vessel, through Alara's sacrifice, his transformation, the confrontation in the Star Chamber, Toran's last stand, and finally, the revelation at the heart of stars. As he spoke, the luminescence beneath his skin pulsed in rhythm with his words, creating patterns that flowed across his body like living calligraphy. When he finished, the temple was silent. The counselors communed silently among themselves, using the telepathic abilities that all high-ranking Covenant possessed. Finally, the head counselor spoke. "What you have experienced, What you have become represents both challenge and opportunity for the Covenant. Our isolation has served us for millennia, but perhaps that time is ending. The universe evolves, and so must we. The human species is expanding rapidly, another counselor added. Their adaptability makes them both valuable allies and potentially dangerous competitors. We must choose our path with care. The ancient ways speak of connection, not isolation. A third counselor countered. Of growth through diversity, not purity through separation. Perhaps we have strayed too far from our founder's vision. The debate continued, respectful but intense. Kai listened, understanding more than his young age would suggest. His mind expanded by Alara's knowledge and the cosmic awareness granted by the heart of stars. Eventually, the head counselor raised her hand for silence. The path forward is not yet clear, but this much is certain. The child Kai represents a new possibility, a living bridge between our peoples. He will remain here, under the Covenant's protection, to be educated in both his human heritage and his adopted Covenant ways. She turned to Marvos. As for you, former commander, your actions warrant severe punishment under Covenant law. Yet your transformation suggests the possibility of redemption. You will be stripped of rank and privilege and assigned as guardian to the human child, to protect him, teach him, and learn from him in turn. Marvos bowed deeply. I accept this judgment with gratitude, counselor. And what of humanity? Lyra asked. Will the Covenant continue its policy of minimal contact or seek greater engagement? The head counselor considered this. We will send envoys to Earth and its colonies, bearing knowledge and offering exchange. Not full integration, not yet, but the beginning of a more open relationship. The human child will serve as symbol and translator of this new approach. As the council session concluded, Kai felt both relief and uncertainty. He had found a place, a purpose, but the road ahead remained long and challenging. Would humanity accept the Covenant's overtures? Would the Covenant truly embrace change after millennia of isolation? One day at a time, Lyra counseled, seeing his worried expression. Great journeys begin with single steps. In the cycles that followed, Kai's life settled into a new pattern. He lived in the temple complex, studying Covenant science, history, and spiritual practices under various teachers, including the reformed Marvos. His unique nature made him a quick study, able to grasp concepts that would challenge even adult Covenant. At the same time, he maintained his connection to his human heritage. The High Council provided him with Earth literature, music, and cultural materials. Occasionally, human diplomats and scientists visited the Covenant capital, bringing news of his homeworld and marveling at what he had become. But it was music that truly became Kai's bridge between worlds. His human emotional capacity, combined with Covenant understanding of cosmic harmonics, allowed him to create compositions that moved listeners of both species to tears. When he sang, the luminescence beneath his skin danced in patterns that matched the melodies, creating a visual symphony to accompany the auditory one. And always, in every song, he wove Alara's name, sometimes overtly, sometimes in subtle harmonics that only Covenant ears could detect. It became his signature, his tribute to the one who had given everything for a child of another species. Years passed. Kai grew from child to adolescent to young man, his unique nature becoming more pronounced with maturity. The luminescent patterns beneath his skin developed into full, Covenant markings, yet with distinctly human variations. His consciousness expanded further, able to perceive the quantum connections between all living things in ways that even the most spiritually advanced Covenant could not. On his 18th birthday, measured in Earth years, the High Council granted him a request he had long desired: permission to travel, not just within Covenant space, but to human colonies, to Earth itself, carrying his message of connection and his music to both peoples. You have learned all we can teach you, the head counselor said in the formal ceremony, marking his transition to adulthood. Now, it is time for you to teach others. His first journey took him to Proxima Centauri b, the world his parents had been traveling to when the collision occurred. It was bittersweet, walking the surface of the planet that should have been his home, seeing the colony his family had never reached. But it was also the beginning of his true work. When he performed for the human colonists, singing of stars and connection and sacrifice, the luminescence of his covenant heritage visible through his human skin. Something remarkable happened. The barriers between species, between worldviews, seemed to thin momentarily. Understanding flowed where fear or indifference had once ruled. From Proxima, he traveled to other colonies, then eventually to Earth itself, the ancestral home of humanity. Now one planet among many in humanity's expanding sphere. He performed in ancient concert halls and ultra-modern space habitats, for small gatherings and vast crowds. Always, he sang of Alara, of the nurse who had defied her people's fear to save a child, not of her kind, who had given her final breath so that he might live. The story resonated across cultural and species boundaries, touching something universal about sacrifice and love. And sometimes, in the quietest moments of his performances, when the final notes hung in the air like stars, audience members would report seeing something extraordinary, a shimmer of light around Kai that took the form, just for an instant, of a covenant woman with compassionate eyes and healing hands. "Is it true?" a young human girl asked him once, after a performance on Europa. "Does her spirit really live in you?" Kai smiled, the luminescent patterns beneath his skin pulsing gently with his heartbeat. "Not just in me," he told her. "In the quantum web that connects all living things. In the stellar consciousness that spans the galaxy. When we love beyond boundaries, when we give without expectation, we touch that universal connection." "Do you miss her?" the girl persisted. "Even though you barely knew her?" Kai considered this. "How can I miss someone who is always with me? Alara gave me more than life. She gave me purpose, connection, understanding beyond my years. And through my music, she lives on. Her sacrifice remembered and honored across the stars." As decades passed, Kai became known throughout human space and the Covenant territories as the Stellar Singer, the bridge between worlds. His music helped ease tensions during difficult diplomatic negotiations, inspired cooperation on joint scientific ventures, and simply brought joy to beings of both species. The transformation that Alara had begun with her sacrifice expanded outward, like ripples from a stone cast into cosmic waters. Humans and Covenant found more common ground than differences, more reason for cooperation than conflict. Other species, observing this unexpected harmony, began to approach both civilizations with greater openness. And on quiet nights, when the stars shone particularly bright, Kai would sometimes slip away from whatever world he was visiting, find a place of solitude, and sing privately to Alara, thanking her, sharing his experiences, feeling her presence in the quantum connections that bound all things. "Your last breath became my life's song," he would whisper to the stars, "and I will sing your name until my own last breath, so that no one forgets what one act of love can do." Somewhere in the vast cosmic web, in the consciousness that spanned the galaxy, Alara heard, and the stars shone a little brighter in response.